नमस्कार। आज सैटरडे 13 अगस्त 2022 को राउंड टेबल एक्सपर्ट ग्रुप ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट जो डॉक्टर के SCFI हार्ट केयर फाउंडेशन ऑफ इंडिया द्वारा ऑर्गेनाइज है। इस मीटिंग में हमारे सभी व्यूअर्स का जो यूट्यूब और फेसबुक पेज डॉक्टर के अग्रवाल के यूट्यूब फेसबुक पेज से जुड़े हैं उनका सबका स्वागत है। हमारे एक्सपर्ट मेंबर्स का स्वागत है। ये मीटिंग जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि जो संडे की हमारी राउंड टेबल होती थी 12 से 1, तो उसको शिफ्ट करके अभी सैटरडे विद दी जो डिस्कशन विद दी मेंबर्स, इसको सैटरडे को 11 से 12 किया गया है। ये हमारी राउंड टेबल एवरी संडे करीब 1.5 साल से जब डॉक्टर के अग्रवाल जी ने शुरू की थी, ये नवंबर 2020 में कोविड के टाइम पे, तब से ऑनलाइन मीटिंग जो होती थी और उनके टाइम में तक रहते बहुत से सब्जेक्ट पे डिस्कशन किया। और उनके जाने के बाद विद दी सपोर्ट फ्रॉम दी SCFI जो मैनेजमेंट ट्रस्टी एंड पर्टिकुलरली श्री विवेक जी जो ट्रस्टी SCFI के हैं, और विद दी सपोर्ट फ्रॉम ऑल दी अवर एक्टिव मेंबर्स, ये मीटिंग जो है अग्रवाल साहब के बाद भी, उनके जाने के बाद फिजिकली हम लोगों की ब्लेसिंग के साथ और ये मीटिंग कंटिन्यू कर रहे हैं हम लोग और डिफरेंट सब्जेक्ट पे डिस्कस करते हैं। और आज का जो टॉपिक है इस मीटिंग का, राउंड टेबल एक्सपर्ट ग्रुप ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट डॉक्टर के SCFI का इंडियाज अपडेटेड क्लाइमेट एक्शन टारगेट्स जैसे नेशनली डिटरमिन्ड कंट्रीब्यूशन, जो कि हमने इस मीटिंग को लास्ट को जो हमारी जो मीटिंग हुई थी लास्ट वीक संडे को, उसकी कंटिन्यूशन में है और हमारे एक्सपर्ट्स लोगों के साथ डिस्कस किया था। और आज तो सबसे पहले मैं अपने एक न्यू मेंबर आज हमारे साथ हैं जो कि अपने बिजी शेड्यूल वजह से पहले नहीं ज्वाइन कर पाए, श्री अजय राघव जी। ये हमारे पुराने फ्रेंड हैं और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट, फॉरेस्ट, क्लाइमेट चेंज, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया में एक क्लाइमेट चेंज डिवीजन में हैं। उनका स्वागत है। और हमारे ऑलवेज मेंटर पार्थोस त्यागी जी, विवेक जी, प्रदीप खंडेलवाल जी, द्वारकानाथ और सभी मेंबर्स के वेलकम के साथ हम इस बैकग्राउंड के साथ मीटिंग को दोबारा से जस्ट टू रिकैप्चर करते हुए स्टार्ट करेंगे, बिकॉज हमने लास्ट टाइम इसको टॉपिक पे डिस्कस किया था। आप सभी जानते हैं कि ऑन अभी 3 अगस्त 2022 को इंडियन कैबिनेट ने जो अभी अप्रूव किया टू अचीव इंडियाज लॉन्ग टर्म गोल्स ऑफ रीचिंग नेट जीरो emissions by 2070, उसमें जो particularly focus किया updated nationally determined contribution, that is the basically the climate action targets. This is committing to achieve about 50% of the cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel resources, that is like renewable energy as well as nuclear, by 2030, and to reduce emission intensity, that is emission per unit of GDP, by 45% by year 2030 from the year 2005 levels. तो ये दो बहुत बड़े अनाउंसमेंट किए इंडियन कैबिनेट ने। बेसिकली दिस टारगेट्स ऑफ द अचीविंग 50% cumulative electric power from the non-fossil fuel energy resources. So this will be achieved with the help of transfer of technology and the low cost international finance, including Green Climate Fund, or these new cumulative and जो इंडिया actually जो translate the जो पंचामृत अभी अनाउंस किया था ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने COP26 में ग्लासगो नवंबर 2020 में, उसी के दीज दी एक्शंस, उसमें जो 5 पॉइंट्स थे, बट अभी इसमें जो 2 हाइलाइट्स हैं, ये इस पार्ट ऑफ दैट COP26 गोल्स। India is basically has already achieved about 40% of its installed electric capacity from non-fossil fuel energy sources, and in this cabinet also meeting, the cabinet also this approved this also flagging of the India's vision of the sustainable lifestyle and the climate justice to protect poor from vulnerable from the adverse impact of climate change, बेसिकली लाइफ इज ए की टू दिस कम्बैट क्लाइमेट चेंज। तो अभी हम लोग तो सभी डिस्कस करते हैं, हर मीटिंग में वी डिस्कसिंग कि जो लाइफ स्टाइल, जो चेंज इन लाइफ स्टाइल इज ऑलवेज की टू क्लाइमेट चेंज। हम बहुत दिनों से कर रहे हैं कि हम लोग हमारे ट्रेडिशंस में, हमारे इसमें किस तरह से जो है पहले लोग करते थे, किस तरह को फूड को वेस्टेज नहीं होना करते थे, और बहुत सी जो चीज़ें होती थी हम रिसाइकिल करते थे, रीयूज हमारा बहुत दिन से चलता रहा। तो सो मैनी थिंग्स ये ऑलरेडी किया हुआ है। इसमें टारगेट में जो नेट जीरो टारगेट बाय रेलवे का है 2030, दिस आल्सो इंक्लूड। और इसके साथ में जो हमारा जो कैंपेन है, मैसिव एलईडी कैंपेन है और एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी कैंपेन है, और स्विचिंग ओवर टू रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी है, और इंसेंटिव प्रोग्राम है पीएलआई। देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स इंक्लूड दिस पर्टिकुलरली जो मिशन है, जो इस क्लाइमेट चेंज टारगेट का है, उसमें देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स इंक्लूडेड। तो मैं इसी के साथ आज सारे पॉइंट्स डिस्कस करेंगे। और सबसे पहले मैं पार्थो त्यागी जी के सर को ही रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि हमारे सबके मेंटर हैं इस फील्ड के। मैं तो इनको अपने एनवायरनमेंट पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल जो इश्यूज का है भीष्म पिताजी, मैं भीष्म पिता मैं कहता हूँ कि हमारे सर से हम लोगों ने बहुत कुछ सीखा है। तो आज हमारे अपना एक आशीर्वाद के साथ स्टार्ट करते हुए पार्थो त्यागी सर, तो जो भी आप अपना एक हम लोगों को ग्रुप को जो ब्लेसिंग के साथ आप अपना जो है व्यू पॉइंट एक्सप्रेस करें सर। ओवर टू त्यागी सर।
अच्छा, धन्यवाद डॉक्टर अनिल कुमार। मैंने आपसे बताया भी था कि इस बारे में मैं बहुत कम जानता हूँ। और
सर जस्ट जो भी सर थोड़ा सा व्यू पॉइंट आपके बस
हाँ ना, जरूर कुछ ना कुछ। अब आपने कहा तो कुछ ना कुछ तो कहूँगा ही, और कोशिश करूँगा कि वो सेंसिबल भी हो। मगर अजय राघव बैठे हैं जो कि बहुत होशियार आदमियों में से है और आजकल मिनिस्ट्री में है, तो वो अब तो वो मुझे परखेंगे कि मैं कैसा बोलता हूँ, क्या करता हूँ। तो खैर, मुझे ये कहना था कि हम लोगों ने बड़े अच्छे टारगेट्स बनाए कि नॉन फॉसिल फ्यूल को हम लोग अडॉप्ट करेंगे, और उसमें हम लोग सचमुच सोलर एनर्जी में जितना पहले 20-30 साल में नहीं हुआ, उतना इन्होंने 5-6 साल में करके दिखाया है। ये बहुत तारीफ की बात है। लेकिन इन टारगेट्स को इतना सीरियसली लिया है कि जो दूसरे टारगेट्स थे उनसे वो क्लैश करता है। मेरा इशारा है हाइड्रो पावर से। हाइड्रो पावर हमारी नदियों को, और न सिर्फ नदियों को, नदियों के पास में रहने वालों को, नदी के अंदर जितनी दौलत है या जितनी जीव जंतु हैं, उन सबको इफेक्ट करता है बहुत बुरी तरह से। और ये शुरुआत हो गई थी मनमोहन सिंह जी के टाइम पर, गंगा जी को एक नेशनल रिवर डिक्लेयर करने के साथ, इको जोन डिक्लेयर करने के साथ, कुछ डैम्स जो अपस्ट्रीम बनने थे उनको अबंडन करने के साथ, कि हम लोग धीरे धीरे डैम्स से अवे आना चाह रहे थे। मगर अब जो हमारा नॉन फॉसिल फ्यूल का जो टारगेट है उसमें हाइड्रो इलेक्ट्रिक भी चूंकि शामिल है, इसलिए न सिर्फ हम जो एग्जिस्टिंग है उनको गिव अप कर रहे हैं, बल्कि जो पहले पोस्टपोन भी कर दिए गए थे या डेफर कर दिए गए थे उनको भी पिकअप करने की मूड में है। और मैंने सुना है कि कुछ इस तरह के डिसीजंस लिए जा रहे हैं। ये उन टारगेट्स को, इंटरनेशनल टारगेट्स में वाहवाही भी मिलेगी और पूरे ग्लोब को फायदा होगा, इसमें मुझे शुबा नहीं। मगर अपने ही देश में एक अच्छी पॉलिसी का इस तरह से उसके ऊपर कुठाराघात करना, ये मुझे कोई सेंसिबल बात नहीं लगती है। हाइड्रो पावर के बारे में जो पॉलिसी सोच समझकर बनाई गई थी उसे आगे बढ़ाने की जरूरत है, बजाय उसको रिवर्स करने की। इसी तरह से मैं चाहता हूं कि इसमें सहयोग बहुत जरूरी है। ज्यादातर जो प्रोजेक्ट्स मैंने देखे उनमें अगर किसी जमाने में ये था कि 10% ऑफ द एनर्जी कंजम्पशन शैल बी फ्रॉम सोलर एनर्जी, तो कोशिश करता था आर्किटेक्ट की 11% या 11.5% वो दिखला दे कि हमारा कंजम्पशन सोलर एनर्जी से है। अगर उसके पास गुंजाइश भी है बाय रीडिजाइनिंग और बाय सम अदर मीन्स कि वो 20% या 25% कर ले, तो वो करने की कोशिश नहीं करते थे। तो टारगेट जब ज्यादा बड़े रख दिए जाते हैं तो वो अचीव नहीं होते हैं, और छोटे रख दिए जाते हैं तो उनको लोग एक्सीड नहीं करते हैं। ये एक बड़ी गलत टेंडेंसी है, और इसका करेक्शन एक अच्छी लीडरशिप ही कर सकती है, जो कि उनको इस दिशा में आगे उत्साहित करे कि आपको इसके लिए बाध्य किया जाए या न किया जाए। आप जितना कर सकते हैं वो उतना आप सोलर एनर्जी को इस्तेमाल करें। ऐसी एग्जाम्पल्स हैं दुनिया में जहाँ पे कि बड़ी बिल्डिंग्स ने, सिंगल बड़ी बिल्डिंग ने कोई बाहर की एनर्जी लेने की जरूरत खत्म कर दी है, क्योंकि उन्होंने अपने आप ही इस तरह से उसको डिजाइन किया आर्किटेक्चरली कि उनकी एनर्जी जनरेशन, पर्टिकुलरली सोलर एंड विंड, वो उनकी टोटल रिक्वायरमेंट को मीट कर लेता है। उन हालत में हमारा ये 10% का टारगेट या ये बहुत नीचे है, और हमारे आर्किटेक्ट्स को इसके लिए बहुत प्रेरणा देने की जरूरत है, और वो प्रोफेशनली भी आगे बढ़ाया जा सकता है और पॉलिटिकली भी आगे बढ़ाया जा सकता है। ये मैं बस एक दो बात कहना चाह रहा था कि हमारी नेशनल पॉलिसीज नहीं हर्ट हो जानी चाहिए, इसलिए कि हमें इंटरनेशनल एक नाम पैदा करना है। दैट्स ऑल। I have said what I wanted to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your very kind words. मैं अब इसमें आज अजय राघव जी से शुरुआत करेंगे सर के बाद, कि आज जो मिनिस्ट्री के जो पर्टिकुलर थे बड़े जो चैलेंजिंग टारगेट्स हैं, बिकॉज अभी आज के जो कैपेसिटी है अराउंड इंडिया की अराउंड 400 जो टोटल जो है गीगावाट है, और जिस हिसाब से एनर्जी डिमांड बढ़ रही है, एवरी लाइफ स्टाइल हमारी, चाहे यंग जनरेशन की हो, चाहे आफ्टर जो है लॉकडाउन के बाद आईटी सेक्टर में और सभी हर जगह एनर्जी की रिक्वायर्ड, बिना एनर्जी आपके हर रिसोर्स की जरूरत होती है, जिस हिसाब से बढ़ रही है। तो 2030 तक इतने जो टारगेट्स हैं उनको अचीव करना इट नॉट दैट इजी। तो मिनिस्ट्री के क्या प्रोग्राम्स हैं टू एटलीस्ट जो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन प्रोग्राम्स, कैबिनेट का अप्रूवल है, डेफिनेटली ऑल द डिपार्टमेंट, मिनिस्ट्री और जितनी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट इस पर फोकस करेंगे। तो क्या इसका जो डिटेल प्रोग्राम है या कुछ इस तरह से क्या एक्शन प्लान है, तो मैं अजय राघव जी से जो है रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि आज
सबसे पहले सबको बहुत बहुत नमस्कार। ये मेरी पहली मीटिंग है। मैं हमेशा चाहता था कि मीटिंग अटेंड करूं, बट कुछ ना कुछ वीकेंड में भी लगा रहता था, तो उस चक्कर में मैं मीटिंग अटेंड नहीं कर पाया। और मैं एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर रहा था कि मुझे ही बोलने को दिया जाएगा। मैं तो सोचा कि टॉपिक इंटरेस्टिंग है तो मैं कुछ सुनूंगा। और सबसे पहले तो परितोष त्यागी जी को बहुत बहुत प्रणाम। सर, आपसे तो हमेशा हमने सीखा है, तो आप ऐसा मत समझिए कि मैं कुछ परख रहा हूँ। आप जो बोल रहे थे तो आपका जो बोलना था उससे तो मतलब मैं शत एग्री करता हूँ, और आपसे तो हमेशा सीखा है। तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आप इस फील्ड के बारे में नहीं जानते हैं। मैं तो अभी इस सब काम को अभी शुरू किया है मैंने, तो आपकी गाइडेंस और मार्गदर्शन हमेशा रहता है। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, this topic is current, and I think I must congratulate the organizers for keeping this discussion in a short group of experts. But we must also note that unlike other environmental problems, this issue of climate change is a global issue. So if we are dealing with air pollution or pollution in the rivers or hazardous waste, these are problems created by us and to be solved by us through our promotional and legal measures, whether it is Air Act, Water Act, Environmental Protection Act. So there is a difference between a climate change issue, because climate change is primarily caused because of the greenhouse gases. So if one molecule of CO2 emitted in India or in US or in Germany or Japan will add to a common atmosphere concentration. So CO2 is not a regulated pollutant deliberately in India. It is not governed by any acts so far directly, whereas we have standards which ministry gives, environmental standards. CPCB also participates in formulation of these standards. We have not included CO2. And the reason for that is that the climate change issue is linked to the development issue, and also linked to who and how much of energy is being consumed in the world. So what we have seen, that climate change has happened because of the past historical emissions of primarily from the developed countries. So industrial revolution started way back in 1760, and we were not even independent that time, and our resources were used by our colonizers. So most of the coal burning, which started almost 200 years back and more, resulted in the increase in the concentration of the primary greenhouse gas, the CO2. So we say that the pre-industrial concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere was 280 parts per million, ppm. Now it is exceeding 415 in the atmosphere. So what we have seen is that there is a increase in the global surface mean temperature by around 1.1 degrees from the pre-industrial times. So we will say that what is great about 1.1? 1.1 is nothing. But this 1 degree temperature which has increased has led to this catastrophic consequences which the whole world is seeing, whether increased melting of the glaciers in the North Pole or in Antarctica or even in other parts of the world. Sea level rise, which we are seeing world over, and changes in our weather system, the patterns of rainfall. The Indian monsoon has shifted in terms of arrival and departure. We are seeing that the rainfall volume has not increased or decreased significantly, but it has seen that is being seen that there are temporal and spatial variations in the rainfall. So the Northeast is receiving, say, around 15% less rainfall, and the areas in the West like Rajasthan and Gujarat are receiving much more rainfall. The rainy days as such have decreased. Earlier, in the 4-month period of monsoon, we used to have rainy days of around 120. Those rainy days have now decreased to 65 to 70. So we are seeing higher peaks in lesser time, more frequency of higher peaks and less of slow rainfall even. So there are impacts which are there all over the world, including in India, and we have been among the most vulnerable countries consistently, among the top 10 countries recognized as the most vulnerable to climate change. And in this context and background, what we are seeing the climate change is because of the past cumulative emissions, because the CO2 molecule has a lifespan of more than 500 years, even 1,000 years. So the major impacts in climate change, what is happening now, is because of the past emissions of the developed world and increase in the concentration. Countries like India and China and others have only recently in last 30-40 years started increasing and developing, and other developing countries. So when we had this treaty in 1992, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which came into, was ratified by 1994, it clearly stated that it is common but differentiated responsibilities, because it is a common responsibility of all countries, but every developed and developing countries will have different responses. Developed countries are supposed to decrease their emissions, whereas developing countries have been given space to increase their emissions so as to meet their development targets, including eradication of poverty. So even though India has announced that it will become net zero by 2070, but that does not mean that we will abandon our development initiatives, whether it is housing for all, electricity for all, increasing the income of farmers, making people above the poverty line, and providing them basic facilities. So these development activities will continue. Whereas what we have suggested in the NDCs is that our economy and all sectors of economy will become more efficient. So that is why our targets are not for reduction of absolute emissions. The emissions are not going to decrease today. It will come to some peak and then it will taper down to net zero by 2070. But we are at the moment increasing our emissions by around 4 to 4.5% every year. But what we have achieved is that we have achieved reduction in the emission intensity. So the emission intensity translates into making our economy more efficient in terms of climate. So what does it mean? That if we are increasing our GDP by, say, 100 rupees, earlier we used to emit, say, 50 kg of CO2 for increasing our economy. Now what we are saying is that we will increase our economy by 100, but not utilize 50 kg of CO2, but say 35 or 40. So as we increase our economy, as we become more energy efficient in various fields, so we have so far seen that our emission intensity has reduced by 24% between 2005 and 2016. And we have already achieved our Copenhagen targets, which was set in 2009. Our previous NDCs were given in 2015. So we were sure that we are going to achieve that. So that is why the decision was taken that we should increase our ambitions and make our sectors more efficient, cutting across industries, transportation, the agriculture and other base sector and all. So in that background, I would also like to say that even though our population is 17% of the world, but our contributions from 1850 in the pre-industrial time to date is only 4%. So cumulative emissions, which is the primary cause of the climate change today, our contribution is minuscule. And our per capita emissions of carbon dioxide is 1/3 of the world average. It is around 1.9 to 2 tons per person per year, which is much less than the world average. So even we are among the lowest in the world. So this has happened because of the inherent behavior of the citizens since time immemorial. And we had also brought out certain publications which were well received throughout the world. One was the Parampara, which the Honorable Prime Minister inaugurated in Paris and was given to all the heads of states. These are available on the ministry's website. We also had brought out publications on low carbon lifestyles. This was also released in COPS subsequently. And we also had other publications on Samanvay. That means that we are amalgamating our actions even in the present day, not only restricted to the old age practices. So these all knowledge products are there available on the ministry's website if you have not already seen those. The lives, the call for the life, which was given by the Honorable Prime Minister in Glasgow in November 2021 last year in the COP26, has also been included in our current NDCs. So we had 8 NDCs, 3 were quantitative in our earlier version, which was given in 2015. Now we have amended by increasing our target of emission intensity from 35% to 45% without increasing timeline. So by 2030, we are going to achieve the same target which we had set out earlier. The non-fossil fuel share in the installed capacity has also been increased from 40% to 50%. We have already achieved this 9 years in advance. So in October 2021, we had already exceeded 40%. Currently, it stands around 41.6%. There was also mention of the hydropower. I would like to just mention here that hydropower is included in the non-fossil. So we are not talking about renewable. We are talking about the non-fossil. So hydropower is very much there. In fact, the small hydro less than 25 megawatt is categorized world over as renewable energy. There is a lot of thrust to increase the small hydropower plants, because the large power, the hydropower projects have a lot of investments, and also they have long gestation period. And we have seen that there are R&R issues, and also because of the climate change, there is a lot of fluctuation in the flows of the rivers. So hydro is not discouraged, the large hydro is not discouraged, but there are few takers nationally and internationally, although we have number of projects which are in the construction phase here. So we have already, there is a lot of thrust on the renewable energy, and it is the one of the fastest growing sector in the world. Our achievements have been pretty good. We had earlier given a target of 20,000 megawatt by 2022. And when this present government came in the power in 2014, so among the first decisions was that we will increase this by 5 times. So the target was announced by 2022. We will be, by the same year 2022, we will achieve not 20 but 100 gigawatts. And we are now very close to achieving that. And the total target was set to 175 gigawatts by 2022, and we have already achieved around 168. So I think by the end of the year, this target will again be exceeded. Prime Minister in 2019 UN conference in New York had increased this by from 175 to 450 gigawatt by 2030. And this was further increased to 500 gigawatt in Glasgow last year. So there are very high ambitious targets which India has set for itself. And I am sure that I think renewable energy is the future. Renewable energy will not only be used for electricity, but it will also be used into production of green hydrogen and green ammonia, which will then will help us in achieving our net zero targets from industries as well as transportation. So there are a number of targets which the country has set, including on the green hydrogen mission. So there are efforts, and recently Prime Minister has also inaugurated the pilot projects in Ladakh on green hydrogen. So there are a number of efforts which different ministries are taking into action. Finally, I would like to end by saying that it is not the responsibility of only the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. We are among the one ministry which is taking action. We are the nodal ministry to coordinate the efforts of the whole government of India. But more than 20 ministries which are actively participating in the climate action, whether it is power, the renewable, MNRE, the Ministry of Finance or Agriculture and so on. So there are a number of ministries and departments and organizations which are working in this. So Anilji, sorry for a very long intervention and speech. I don't want to bore others by this speech, and I hand over to you for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay Ravi. So, I mean, that's what we needed. Actually, we details of the ministry, we may not be aware with all the experts are there in the field, but the latest one, since you are the in the ministry and day-to-day working is associated with this. So I think that was a very excellent. You have given the overview of what is the plan the ministry has and the role of the other department ministry. But Raghav, one thing I just wanted to also add, the ministry, I think that can have a bigger target, because ministry has the program, the environment clearance sector, the environment impact assessment, and the lot of development projects. Lot of conditions are giving to have this kind of renewable energy, including solar one. But monitoring is really poor, because I was in the Delhi SESC also. But we set the condition with the development projects, including housing project. But actually, in the ground, these are very poorly implemented, and people are not serious. And the ministries, because of the integrated their regional office, they're not able to monitor, and no penalty provision is there. But all these development projects, including the maybe the hotels, malls, and the schools, colleges, whatever the under the environment clearance regime, or the maybe the other will not be even less than 20,000 square meter. So if we have this kind of, because a lot of area available, if we go for that, we can achieve much on the solar front. That was it. So that area need to be, the ministry has to look into that, and the implementation enforcement need to be very strengthened for that. So your comments, I will also, before going to other expert, I want your comments on that also. That Ajay.
Thank you for your question and suggestion. I am not expert in the environmental clearance, so I have not have much experience in this. Although it is a very important activity of the ministry to give environment clearance, and that is how the importance of the ministry is there, that everybody just lines up to have clearances here. I think there are areas of improvement which is needed and recognized by the ministry and the government. I understand that this apart from the rules and regulations, it is more on the implementation, and that is true for all activities of the ministry, CPCB, SPCB, is that implementation generally is poor. I think one of the important way which we can do is to make industries themselves responsible and have self-monitoring, because unless and until, you cannot have inspectors everywhere. First of all, the amount of work which you have and the recruitments which we are having now, it's impossible to monitor everybody. So self-monitoring and self-reporting, even in terms of climate actions, is needed. And then we should have a scientific way of statistically inspecting only few industries, which then can be penalized very heavily. And that can set up as a deterrent to others, that self-reporting does not mean that nobody is checking, but we can have small sample size across the country, across the sectors, where we can have very thorough inspection by our teams from not only state, the center, but the states also, and actively give punitive measures so that there is a deterrence. Because if there is no fear among the polluter, then these things will continue. So that is one aspect. The other thing which is happening and which should happen is that the environmental conditions which are being given also have some measurement of climate action which the industry can take. So there are now efforts to also include the measures towards climate protection in the environmental clearance. So even though climate itself word may not come, but many actions, for example, energy conservation is directly related to the climate, or rainwater harvesting, I would say, is also related to climate. So there are several measures, including promotion of renewable energy, because we are forcing to have more renewable energy, because we understand that more than 45% of our emissions come from the thermal power plants. So the current inventory says 43% comes from the coal-based power plants. So that is a major sector. Similarly, we have cement industries, the steel industries, which also contribute 5% each, and transportation 10%. So these are major sectors which needs to be roped in, and I think there needs to be coordination among the different actors, not only in the ministry but others, in order to have better implementation of all acts and rules, including conditions on the environmental clearance and forest clearance. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghuji, for very clear your view on that. And definitely it will be in future ministry. The self-monitoring and the technological monitoring is very, very important sort of the physical manpower. So thank you so much for your clarification. Now, just we have around 15 minutes, and the last time we have also discussed. So I'll request now Dwarkanath ji, who was both in the Delhi and the Puducherry with the climate change as a state program. So I'll request Dwarkanath ji for his view on the today's topic in the climate action targets, that is NDC. So over to Dwarkanath sir. Dwarka ji, you are there? Dwarka sir. I think
कनेक्ट कर रहे हैं, ऑडियो कनेक्ट कर रहे हैं.
ओके सर. मैं तब तक द्वारका जी कनेक्ट कर रहे हैं. मैं चाहूंगा, वैसे तो विवेक जी हमारे समराइज करते हैं पॉइंट्स को, बट एज ए इंडस्ट्री बिकॉज ही इज इंडस्ट्रीज ऑल्सो, एंड पर्टिकुलरली होटल्स एंड टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री, इनका काफी चेन है. तो मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा विवेक जी से इंडस्ट्री पर्सपेक्टिव ऑन दिस, पर्टिकुलरली जो क्लाइमेट एक्शंस जो अभी इंडिया कैबिनेट ने एनडीसी और जो अपडेटेड किया है, उसमें इंडस्ट्री के व्यू पॉइंट क्या है. तो मैं विवेक जी से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो एक्सप्रेस करें.
Namaskar to all the viewers, especially to the senior who are a part of this, Paritosh Tyagi ji, Ajay ji for joining us on Saturday, Shyam Gupta ji, Pradeep ji, Dwarkanath ji. I would like to say that from an industry point of view, I would say that we are all getting more and more conscious on this subject. Particularly we as a group are our group is called the Kamalia Group. We are doing a lot of conscious effort towards this. Like in all our hotels, we have removed all plastic bottles. And now we are giving mineral water filled within our own premises in glass bottles and sealed and kept in the rooms also. Same way, I would say, like our textile division has completely gone into sustainable garments. So as very rightly put by Ajay ji also and by Paritosh ji also, there is a lot of effort which the individuals and the industrial groups, etc., have to make a conscious effort on their own to this subject. It is not about advertising. It is about on ground level, how much effort you want to make to bring the change. And we cannot only depend on the government to make these changes. I am very happy because two of my very dear friends are setting up two of the largest hydro projects at this moment in Nepal. And the aim is that the entire power from these two hydro projects, which will commence from next year, is going to be supplied directly to India. And this reduces our long-term carbon footprint because these hydro projects are going to reduce a lot of burden of burning coal, etc. in India. Secondly, I feel now the new technology of solar panels, like what we have installed in our hotels, are working on thermal technology. This thermal technology is giving you up to 650 watts of power on each panel, unlike the previous ones, which were giving 240 to 300. And in North India, these thermal power panels can work up to 85% efficiency now. So these kind of things are very important, and I think the government of India is doing a lot of steps in encouraging these fields. And I must say that we are taking these facilities from the government, and I think most of the industrialists should encourage and further use this. And the only way the change can be brought in is provided we want to bring in the change, like the way we as a group have decided to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek ji, for your view on industry perspective, because this is your role is I think multiple, because you are the trustee of the SCFI also, and as doing a lot of things for the promoting the environment awareness from the SCFI by different programs on the ground, and also same time your industry as a role of industrialist, particularly the hotel sector and textile sector. So thank you. Definitely with your guidance and the members of the guidance of other member, we are trying to do the things, good things. So Dwarkanath ji, now you connected, or just you can just please?
No, I don't think he is connected. He is still trying to connect his audio.
Okay, no issue. So I think last time, Gupta ji, I think we has heard you. If you want to say anything, Sam Gupta ji, sir.
I think he is still entering the building. He may not be able to speak right now.
Okay, SK Gupta ji. Or yeah, Gupta ji, sir. Yeah.
I think last time I had shared my views.
Yeah. That's what the. That इसलिए मैं पूछा कि अगर anything you want to additionally want to say anything like
that. Everybody is conscious now of this climate change, and everybody is aware that this has become a reality, and people are going to face disastrous consequences of this change. So everybody should try on its own to make small efforts. And I had suggested last time a very small step, that if everybody stop using a vehicle once in a week, he will not only save petrol, which is a fossil fuel, but also emissions from this fossil fuel. So if we save even 1 liter petrol every week, there are 7 crores registered vehicles in the country. will save about 7 crore liter of petrol. And the emissions arising out of this 7 crore liter would be a great help in arresting the climate change.
Yeah.
So therefore, my humble request to everybody is that let governments keep on doing what they are doing. Let us strengthen their efforts. But from our own side, let us also try to do something novel. And for industries, I would suggest that if all industrial establishments encourages their staff to stop using motorized transport and come by either cycle or by walking, and they invest money in the housing near their industrial establishments, then this can bring about a lot of change in reducing emissions. I think government efforts are all directed towards arresting emissions from industrial sources. My concern is that transport is a very, very big guzzler of energy. And if we can pay our attention to transport sector, then we'll be helping to arrest the climate change more effectively. So that was my submission last time also. And again, I am repeating it.
Thank you, Gupta. Thank you, Gupta. Gupta जी का जो कैंपेन है, सजेशन लास्ट टाइम भी हमने किया था कि जो वन डे एटलीस्ट जो है मूव टुवर्ड्स पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट, और जो भी जहां पे भी हैं, ये जो भी हमारे व्यूअर्स देख रहे हैं, अगर ये कैंपेन से और एक दिन भी अगर आप स्विच ओवर होते हैं पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट, बिकॉज एवरी सिटी में नाउ द मेट्रो और द इलेक्ट्रिक पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट on the either in the electric or CNG is there. If you switch over at least one day in a week, then a lot of fuel can be saved, and the kind of emissions, particularly from the transport sector, at least will be reduced. So this campaign from the SCFI, Gupta ji के suggestion से हम लोग start किया है, और every week हम इसको announce करते हैं कि at least one day in a week move towards the public transport, whatever the in city you are there. And definitely the government is trying to have good public transport. So उस पे switch करें. So thank you Gupta ji again. So now we have just 5 minutes, and last time हमारे जो I think खंडेलवाल जी, आप अगर म्यूनिसिपल सेक्टर में कुछ चाहते हैं कि जो आजकल पर्टिकुलरली जो लैंडफिल्स वगैरह पे काफी एक्शन हो रहा है, तो उसमें कुछ you want to add anything, something like जी?
नमस्कार सबको, नमस्कार। मैं आज थोड़ा सा डिफरेंटली बात करूंगा। म्युनिसिपल एंगल को तो खैर उसमें इन्वॉल्व है ही है कि एक जो ये जो स्लम एरिया है, इसमें सबसे ज्यादा क्लाइमेट चेंज का इम्पैक्ट का इफेक्ट सबसे ज्यादा स्लम एरिया में ही होता है। और स्लम एरिया में भी बहुत सी एक्टिविटीज ऐसी होती हैं जो क्लाइमेट चेंज को अफेक्ट करती हैं। तो आई थिंक आज तो हम लोग नहीं उस पर बात करेंगे, एक अगला सेशन हम उस पर रखें कि स्लम एरिया में हम कैसे चेक करें कि जो भी क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से इम्पैक्ट पड़ रहा है उसको कैसे रोका जाए। सिमिलरली स्लम एरिया में जो एक्टिविटीज हो रही हैं उसका क्लाइमेट चेंज में क्या इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है, दोनों चीजें को हम बात करेंगे। नेक्स्ट टाइम आई विल स्पीक ऑन दिस टॉप दिस 2 पॉइंट्स।
ठीक है, थैंक यू खंडेलवाल जी।
मतलब सारे स्लम एरिया में बहुत ज्यादा एक्टिविटीज ऐसी होती हैं,
yes, that can be not only the slum area, the unauthorized जो कॉलोनी बस्ती हैं, because वहाँ पे डेवलपमेंट because basic लो इनकम बेसिक वहाँ पे बेसिक सर्विस नहीं होती है, चाहे उसका सीवेज हो वो भी ऐसे ही जाता है, वो आई थिंक बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट होता है जो भी बेसिक सर्विस ना होने से, बिकॉज ऑफ द नॉट दी कंफर्मिंग एरिया और जो अप्रूव एरिया नहीं होते हैं, और अल्टीमेटली वहाँ पे कोई गवर्नमेंट सर्विसेज नहीं होती है और डेवलपमेंट भी जो हैफेजेड होता है, तो दैट मे बी ए गुड सेक्टर टू टेक ओवर।
चाहे सीवियर कोल्ड हो, चाहे सीवियर हीट हो, चाहे सीवियर रेनफॉल हो, सबसे ज्यादा अफेक्टेड पर्संस यही है।
थैंक यू खंडेलवाल जी। मैं हमारे एक स्पीकर हमारे साथ है अंकित सेठी, बिकॉज डीएमआरसी में है, Ankit, you want to say anything because DMRC ने बहुत climate change पे और particularly जो steps लिए हुए हैं, if you want to say anything on that point.
नमस्कार सर। सर डीएमआरसी के तो एज सच हमारे क्लाइमेट चेंज के प्रोजेक्ट चलते ही हैं, अजय सर भी जानते ही होंगे शायद। हमारे यूनिट्रिपल सीडीएम के साथ, गोल्ड स्टैंड के साथ हमारे प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं रिगार्डिंग मॉडल शिफ्ट। हमारे जो प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं सर, रीजनल ब्रेकिंग हम ट्रेन के अंदर यूज करते हैं, उसके रिगार्डिंग हो गया सर। या हमारी एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी जो मेजर्स लेते हैं सर स्टेशन पे, वो हो गया। तो वी आर डूइंग आवर बिट, मतलब हम अपना पार्ट जितना एज ए ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर में डीएमआरसी कर सकता है, दे आर डूइंग इट। पर सर मेरे अभी आज मतलब मेरे एक दो कंसर्न थे जो मैं शायद पूछना चाहूंगा इनफैक्ट। एक तो सर हम एनडीसीज में बात कर रहे हैं रिगार्डिंग ए कार्बन सिंक की, कि हम अपना कार्बन सिंक को इंक्रीज करेंगे बाय 2.5 to 3 बिलियन टन। तो कुछ ऐसे मैंने कॉन्फ्रेंसेस या अटेंड की थी जिसमें वी आर लैगिंग बिहाइंड। तो अगर अजय सर कुछ इस पे हेल्प कर सके, बता सके कि हम क्या स्टेटस है अभी, इंडिया इज ऑन द पाथ और वी आर लैगिंग बिहाइंड द टारगेट। एंड द सेकंड थिंग सर कि अभी पहले हमारे 8 एनडीसी से, जैसे सर ने बताया, फिर हमने रिवाइज करके इसको पंचमित्र का नाम दिया जिसमें 5 एनडीसीज आ गए, राइट सर। अभी हमने पहले 8 एनडीसीज में हमारे 3 ही क्वालिटेटिव थे, मतलब क्वांटिटेटिव थे, सॉरी। नाउ अब हमने क्वांटिटेटिव बढ़ा दिया है, कुछ परसेंटेज इंक्रीज कर दिया है, सर बता रहे थे। बट स्टिल हम जो क्वालिटेटिव एनडीसीज थे उसकी हमने कोई बात नहीं की है इस बार अपडेटेड एनडीसीज में। तो इज इट साइलेंट नाउ या फिर वो अभी भी इज इट इन पिक्चर? ये थोड़ा सा कंसर्न था जो मैं जानना चाह रहा था।
I think Raghu can focus by. I think this is the updated one and more monitorable जो अभी अब है हमारे particularly, और उसके साथ जो अभी जो न्यू विजन है इंडिया का, जो लाइफ का चेंज, लाइफ स्टाइल चेंज, उसमें आई थिंक बहुत चीजें कवर होंगी। बट अजय कैन राघव जी कैन फोकस ऑन दैट।
Thank you for the question, but I think there is some confusion in understanding. First of all, NDCs are as per the decision of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So every country has given NDCs, including India. So we had given this document in 2015, and it is around 30 pages document, and on one of the pages we have summarized 8 goals. Out of these 8 goals, 3 were quantitative in nature. One was on emission intensity, second one was on about the electricity share, and third one was about the increasing the sinks by the forestry. So what we have done by the latest decision is we have only updated the original NDCs. So we are only saying that everything remains same. The other NDCs which have not been mentioned remains, is only updation. It is not the new NDC, it is the updation of the targets. So we have, out of these 3 quantitative targets, raised the ambitions in two targets. And the forestry target, which was 2.5 to 3 billion additional carbon sinks, remains same. And the third one which we have edited is about the life. So our first NDC originally was about the sustainable lifestyle. So what we have added is about the concept of life, which the Honorable Prime Minister said in the Glasgow. So that is the short question which you have asked.
Sir,
Thank you.
About the Panchamrit. Panchamrit is not the NDC. Panchamrit was just 5 directions which the PM said in his speech about what he wants and what he reassured the world that India will do. NDC is an official document which it is given by the country to the UN. So we have taken some points from there and included in it. So I hope I have made it clear.
Yeah, very I think clear.
So mentioned about the forestry target, whether we are lagging behind. We are not lagging behind. Currently, country sequesters around more than 300 million tons of CO2 every year because of the forestry. our forests have increased in last 20 years continuously, and we bring out our report every 2 years. The last report says that the forests have increased by around 1500 square kilometers in last 2 years, and currently stands at around 24.62% of the geographical area. And the sequestration rate is, the last report said that it is around 307 million tons every year. So we are on the path to achieve that carbon sinks target also. So that will be known when we come closer to 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you for very clear your explanation. Last, I just Dwarkanath ji joined. Dwarkanath ji, if you want to, if you can join, I think you can unmute and they want to say. द्वारका जी अनम्यूट कर लें सर.
सबको नमस्कार. Sorry, actually, despite my best efforts, I could not join due to some network issues in between. But I could able to listen to what Mr. Ajay Raghav told in the end. So that is our intention is different and what we commit is different. These two things are clearly need to be understood. And our intentions we have given in the form of NDC, and what we have committed, many times we give, like inflated targets or ambitious targets, like Mr. Tyagi Saab in his opening remarks, he rightly told, if 10% is the target, no architect or no engineer would like to invest for a little bit more to go for 20%. Many of them go for 11% or 12% at the maximum. So many times we give, ambitious targets so that, we may able to achieve it at a lesser time. So that is another strategy nationally, which we are following. See, one thing is very clear, our intentions are there to able to clear it. Though in international negotiations at different forum, we are asking for a number of issues like transfer of technology, financing of technology, and also accounting of emissions. Though these are gray areas and many things are committed for finances, but nothing comes from the developed economies. This is bound to be there. But we have to struggle hard. It is not a one-day affair or overnight affair where things will change. These commitments will go a long way. We need to revisit the commitments every 5 years or so, depending upon the actual ground level situation as well as the national and international needs. So our NDC and our vision and our directions are very clear. So that being the case, there cannot be any looking back in this, whether it is 250 or 260 or 2070. Our targets and phasing out of fossil fuels will be there depending upon the ground level situation then. And with this small remark, I conclude today.
Thank you, Dwarka sir. Now, finally, time is already 12 o'clock. I request again Vivek ji to just as a trustee of SCFI, just say a word of thanks to, and then we can close. Vivek ji.
Namaskar. Thank you to all the viewers. Thank you for joining us on Saturday and taking this forum forward. We would like suggestions from the senior members, what should be our discussion in the future and what we should discuss on Saturday. We would be also very open, Dr. Anil Kumar ji and myself will be very open to the discussion. We want to know how to make Heartcare Foundation more effective as a board and with the help of all of you to have a good and positive impact for the environment as pollution has no boundaries, and we need to make it more effective. We are very open. We will try to implement and do works under Hardcare Foundation and execute work. And we need all your people's suggestion and help what we can do. And also suggestions for our meetings where we do highlight environmental subjects on Monday. We would be very happy to have some of the senior members speaking on Monday between 2 and 3 on these subjects, and also highlighting issues for the viewers so that they can bring in changes in their life, which can bring in a change in the environment and help us in trying to reverse the global climatic change, which is becoming a major issue in time to come. Like we can see now this year, Europe is facing drought kind of condition. The Rhine River is drying up. The water transport they are unable to do in Europe at this moment. So there are a lot of critical issues like this, and we need to address this globally on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek ji. जैसा विवेक जी ने कहा कि besides our this round table meeting that we Saturday we is having, we have every Monday for the public about 30 to 40 minutes program for where we on the StreamYard online we choose a topic and give message to the public on the direct live on the YouTube and Facebook for the some environmental highlighted issue, so that people are aware about that they can take action accordingly. So हमारा एवरी मंडे 2 से करीब 2:30 या 2:40 तक होता है, एंड जो भी हमारे रेस्पेक्टेड स्पीकर्स यहाँ पे आज एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, कोई भी हमें टाइम टू टाइम सबसे रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ और आके उसमें, बिकॉज दैट इज डायरेक्ट मैसेज पब्लिक को भी आप उसमें देते हैं. So we are taking time to time different subject also. So we have 2 meetings that will be on Saturday. This is the 12 to 1, and Monday we have around the 2 to 2:40. So every this 2 meetings और उसमें विवेक जी का हमारा बहुत बड़ा मोटिवेशनल और रोल होता है. डॉक्टर अग्रवाल के अग्रवाल जी के जाने के बाद विवेक जी एनवायरनमेंट विंग को बहुत आगे ले जाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं विद द सपोर्ट ऑफ आप सबके. इसी के साथ आज की मीटिंग को विल क्लोज दैट, एंड थैंक्स टू ऑल द स्पीकर्स एंड पर्टिकुलरली पार्थो त्यागी सर, अजय राघव जी, श्याम गुप्ता जी एंड प्रदीप खंडेलवाल जी, द्वारकानाथ सर और जो भी हमारे स्पीकर्स आज ने बोले, सबका धन्यवाद.